Hello everyone, it is Andrew Gabriel here, and today I'm going to be going over my story of how I got into metal. Now first, I just want to say thank you for all the good comments on the video that I did about the heaviest records that I own that you probably didn't know about. Video I did kind of like, semi-recently. I think it was like a month ago at this point. I don't know, I just haven't like been doing too many videos as recently, so but I've been thinking about, just like bring it gradually along. Now I'm not gonna do like one video a day like some people, but like, I just want to kind of like do at least a video per week or bi-weekly. So, you know, look ahead for that, or whatever they say. But anyways, with my story of metal, I've been into it for like, I would say about like 12 years, I would say. Because I remember getting into it in 2014. Or at least like finding it or knowing about it. So the thing with that is that like I think my whole story goes back to like when I was like a kid. Like not even like 2014, like pre 2014 stuff. It's just like I would have like I had a father, and he was like really into like, a lot of rock music and all that. He had a he had CDs that I knew of, but I just like didn't bother to check them out. And after he died, I just kind of like, I didn't really think about it too much because it was like a really rough time then. And I just think, I would just move on with my life or whatnot. And then I feel like that came back around later on, which I'll get to once I get to that. But I like was super involved with like video games, or at least like interested in them, because I would like play them at least like every day. And there was a snowboarding game, and I think it was called SSX, and it was specifically the fourth game on tour. And I was like, playing it, and then there was these songs by Iron Maiden, the Scorpions, Def Leppard, Dio, and I think one other on there. And there's and I was just like, I love these songs. I'm gonna look them up, and I was just like, well, like what got to like the videos like that were uploaded on YouTube. I was just like, these kind of like scary covers. So I'm not sure if this music is right for enough for me the moment I get into it. So I just kind of like put it off for a while. But like looking back in hindsight, I just wish I bit the bullet then, and like, just got into it. And so afterwards, I was there was a point in my life where I was just like really into electronic music. I think it came from, again, video games, where I just like heard Daft Punk ones, and I was just like, oh, I love Daft Punk. And I just like, got into like, the Chemical Brothers, the Prodigy, and all this kind of stuff. And with that, I was just like, there was a point where I was just like going in circles, and I was just like, I don't know where I want to go with my musical journey. And I feel like the moment I like listened to the Prodigy's what's it called? I think it's like called Voodoo People. That's like one of their biggest hits, and I was just like, I like this guitar riff so much. I wonder where they got it from. I looked it up, and not a metal band, but I found my first love with music. Probably since I was like 8, because like when I was like 8 years old, I was really into Linkin Park, and obviously that didn't last long either. But uh, I got into like Nirvana, and I was just like, this band is fucking awesome. I need more of it. And so I just like, I was just like going through like grunge and alternative rock. Then, like, I liked Soundgarden. I liked Smashing Pumpkins. I liked Alice in Chains. I liked all that stuff. And I still like that now. It's just that, it was basically like the precursor to what would come. Let me just take a swig of water. But with that in mind, I was just going forward and just like doing research. And then like one day I found out about their MTV performance where they play Lithium. I think it was like 92 that took place or was recorded way before I was born, of course. But with that music, with that not music video, but like with that live performance, there was a video on YouTube where it was like, they had a live performance, but like in the beginning of it, they played the MTV intro to the MTV Awards, and they were like naming groups like Boys to Men. I think Jane's Addiction was another one. Then I heard like one that stuck out to me, and it was like Metallica, and I was just like, that sounds familiar. I had like or rather, my mom would occasionally like have this friend come over, and I think he like, I'm not so sure what you call it, like a carpenter or something. Not a carpenter, but like he definitely like worked with like bathrooms and all that, and other things. But with that in mind, I think one day like he noticed that like I really liked Michael Jackson, which is again another artist that I like really enjoyed when I was like younger. But he uh he showed me the song Enter Sandman, and I didn't think about it much then. I thought it was kind of a novelty. And I think the funniest thing that I remember him saying is that like you hear that, that's real drums, and in hindsight I was just like, that's fucking hilarious, because it's like Michael Jackson had session drummers, like world renowned session drummers. Obviously, not none I could name off the top of my head, but it's like I know that they're like just like known for like popular shit. Like they were very talented in their own right. Obviously, Lars Ulrich is just kind of the him. So, and then I think I listened to that again, and I was just like, this is pretty cool. I'm not so sure if I dig it like as much as Nirvana, but like I think I want to say that, but it's like I probably really liked it at the time, but like the one song that really convinced me that metal was here to stay, or rather the one that convinced me to like get into it more, was Fight Fire with Fire, and that song rolls. It is probably like one of my favorite Metallica songs. It's up there. It's definitely like the best off Ride the Lightning for me. So, and I was just like, I need to get more into this, and so I got into I think I spent a little more time with Metallica first, but then I got into like Megadeth and then Anthrax, or like just like funny videos on YouTube where it's just like I'm I'm unsure if like a lot of these people watching are like familiar with the concept of YouTube poops or whatever, but it's like I would watch those all the time and just laugh my ass off, and then like they would just like put like music in there that I was just like kind of interested in, like I think I found like one that was like had Anthrax in it, and so I was just like I got into that stuff, and one part of my life like during all of this is like I got into new metal, which is it's it's I wouldn't say it's like embarrassing. It's just like it's a very like misstep in my life. But we all get into like our we all get into like metal for like different things and all that. But new metal is just like a genre that's not for me. It's a very it's very annoying. It's very I could go into it like another day or whatever, but I just don't like the sound of it. I just think it's fucking disgusting, like sonically, and not in a good way. Oh my god, that's fucking disgusting. That rules. No, it's like it's just like it's all about vomit to me. So, but I found I was in the grandma's basement one day, and I think I found a few cassettes that belonged to her, grandpa, and like the siblings of her. Not the siblings, but like her children. Like my aunt and uncle and all that. And I found like a three in there that just kind of like captivated me. I think those were awful albums, but Life is Peachy by Korn, Slipknot self-titled, and I loved Limp Bizkit back in the day. Significant Other, which is that's embarrassing to say. Like liking Limp Bizkit, like it's just that's me. Like I hurl whenever I like say I liked Limp Bizkit back in the day, because like it's just so fucking. I just hate that music. But I got into them, and then like I was just kind of like put me off for a bit, so I was just like really into new metal for a bit, and like some like post grunge or whatever. So it's just like I I again I hate saying this, hate saying these bands' names, but it's like I was into like bands like Brick and Benjamin, and then Saliva for a bit. I think I liked, what the fuck was that band called? Smile Empty Soul or whatever. Chevelle, that kind of stuff. I feel like the only like band that's associated with all that kind of stuff that I do and happen to enjoy is Deftones, and I just think that the reason why they're well the reason why I like them is that they're the most not new metal band that you could ever get, and that's basically what I like about them, that's kind of like hmm. Sorry to take another sip of water, but I think the thing with all that stuff is just that like it was at the right place at the right time for me. Like I wanted to get like a little heavier, but didn't really know where to go, and then I think that happened for like I would say, let's see, 14, 15, no, 12, 14, 12, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So like I would say like about 5 years. Sorry, I was just counting in my head. So 5 years of new metal basically, and I think I just like gave up like after I like found bands like or like revisited bands like Deceased, Statistic Intent, Nunslaughter, and like all that kind of stuff. But like moving on with the story, I found this band later on in like a YouTube poop again. Not sure if you're familiar with the concept of it, but it's whatever. I'll move on. I was hearing the song in like this one video, and it's just like it was like a split second of like a guy screaming his head off, and I just didn't know like where it was, and I was just like, that sounds really cool. I want to listen to it, and I knew of the big four. I just didn't listen to all of them at that time. Like I knew, like loved Metallica, I loved Megadeth, and I liked Anthrax as well. I just didn't know who this next band coming up was. I think I spoiled it by like getting out the first syllable, but I'll just like continue on with the anticipation just because I like that kind of stuff. But I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get into like the extreme one now because I've heard everything about like this band being extreme, and I'm just like, I'm not sure if I'm ready for it yet, but I think I'm ready for it now. And then I was just like, I looked up a playlist of them, and the first thing I heard was it was basically again the anticipation of it, it was just like the cymbals and the guitar, and then you hear the guy screaming his head off, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? This is awesome. And that band was a Slayer, and the song was Angel of Death. That I was wanting to like listen to. Obviously, Ring Blood isn't my favorite Slayer album, but I would say it's up there. It's the most important one for me. So it basically like dictated what my taste would be like later on. So and it's just like it's the reason my favorite band now. So and it's just like, how can they be your favorite band? Like, do you like every record by them? Like, no, I don't. But it's like the five I do like. That's enough for me to like consider them my favorite band because I just like them that much. And sorry, but like it was just that important to me. So and let's see. I think afterwards I was just like, I want to get more extreme, and so I was just like looking through like lists of like stuff on like YouTube and all that, and I think it was just like random stuff at first, like before I really knew that they were a joke. I would really like watch Loudwire and stuff, and then there was this one list. There was this one list. I think it was called like like not embarrassing, but like top 10 stage fails or whatever, like top 10 live performance fails. And there's this like video of this guy like kind of like of the band, like, playing, like, this extreme, like, intense music. It was, like, so dark and, like, so fucking frightening. And, the guy breaks his mic on stage, and then he, like, continues screaming. And I was just like, who is this band? This is awesome to me. And, that band, enough, was called Pig Destroyer, and I was just like, I need to listen to this, because it sounds awesome. And so I looked up what the Pig Destroyer was, and their genre is, of course, grindcore. And I was just like, I need to get into grindcore, like, right away. I think I tried it once because I, like, heard the band Animal Cunt, which is, like, a bad introduction to this genre as a whole. But it's like, I was just like, this is stupid. But with them, I just got into, like, stuff like Carcass, Napalm Death. I think that Pig Destroyer as well. Pig Destroyer was the first one I heard. So what am I talking about? But I think those were the only three I knew at the time, but I think that there was others as well. Like Brutal Truth. I knew of Terrorizer, but I didn't listen to them then. Then I, and of course Repulsion. So, and then I got into death metal as well at the same time. Basically, Morbid Angel, Death, early, Symphonies of Sickness era Carcass, maybe Necroticism as well. Even though I don't like that record anymore. Who else? I think I also really liked, some of the brutal tech stuff at the time, like Suffocation and like Dying Fetus. Like at one point I had like a tiny iPod Shuffle, and I like literally could not like store that much music on it. So I would just like, have a bunch of like random stuff on it. Like there's like, death metal, grindcore, some thrash metal. I didn't know like, what the stuff outside of it was before, like doing what I'm doing now. But like I had like this tiny iPod Shuffle, and I just like had, I think at one point the only death metal bands I had on it were Suffocation and Dying Fetus, because I liked them that much at the time. And I love like the first three Suffocation records. Dying Fetus, I have my opinions on them, but I like them. So that's that. But continuing on, I was just like, going through like, I think it was like, I think like after middle school, it was like, I just like wanted, I just was kind of like in a phase where I was just like, I didn't really know where I wanted to go, like in my musical direction, because I felt like I discovered everything, quote unquote, which is like, that's crazy in hindsight, because like you discover like 7 bands, like each, both grindcore and death metal. Like how can you like stop there? Like you just go on until like, until you don't stop, basically. So, and so I was just like getting into like stuff I do still listen to now. But let's like, I was getting into like stuff like some of that more like, softer music, like emo and post hardcore a bit. So like I liked Fugazi, and I think I like stuff like Sunny Day Real Estate, the Yab Kids, Saves the Day. I was gonna say Lifetime, but I didn't discover them until later, and so I was just like discovering like all these kind of like punk bands, and like punk, emo, post hardcore kind of stuff, even like, just like straight up like, hardcore, which, some people call metalcore nowadays, which is like, that's crazy to me. Not crazy, but it's like, it's weird to me about that, like, some people call it that, because it's like, isn't like the metalcore that I like heard like growing up was like Killswitch Engage, and like, fucking, what was it? Fucking Shadows Fall, All That Remains, and all that, which is like, they're take it or leave it, but it's like, a lot of that stuff kind of sucks. But the stuff that like gets called metalcore nowadays by some people is Shy Halud, Poison the Well, uh, All Out War, Integrity. There are a lot of bands, but like fucking Ringworm, all that. It's crazy to call Ringworm metalcore, because it's like, to me that's basically like crossover thrash in a way. And like, again, it's like there's a lot of like, thrashcore in it as well. Like kind of like the blasting parts. Before like grindcore was a thing. But grindcore even death metal really. But there was that, and well, I lost my train of thought a bit. But it's like I was just like in this phase where I was just like I don't know where to go, and so I was just like I finally upgraded to like an iPod Touch at the time, which is like I think it's like just like fucking. I think is it outdated? I'm not so sure because I haven't like paid attention to it in like a while. I haven't paid attention to like what fucking Apple's doing like forever. So, but it's like I upgraded to that, and I was just like, great, I could listen to more music. And so the first album I've heard through through like let me just take a sip of water again. The first album I've heard through that was I think it's a one I got another one I got from like a Loudwire list, and it was Exhum's Gore Metal. There was that Cryptopsy's Blasphemy Made Flesh, and also the first Now album, and those were like, okay, I'm sold on death metal. Where do I go from here? And I just kind of like going through like all that stuff. I think the first band I like listened to after those three albums was like Exploiting Dysfunction by Cephalic Carnage, and there was this like hidden track on it where it's like it's called Gracias, and basically what it is just like it's a thankless in song form, and I was just like that's cool. And then I was just like I don't know any of these bands, like there was just like so many of them, and I was just like I need to like listen to them because I just need more music. I was hungry back then. So uh I think the ones I like the most that I discovered from that list is that I think I liked I don't think I liked oh god, I didn't think I liked the Sadistic Intent back then as much as I do now, but I did find like Coven Texts, The Chasm. The Chasm is like one of my all-time favorites, but it's like them, and like a few brutal bands as well, like Skinless, Mortician, Malignancy, basically like bands that they like listed on there, and a lot of them are just like stuff that I like really couldn't find because like it's really obscure stuff, like some shit like Scum Bitch or like Ass Cavern. I'm just like there's some really crazy names, and I wonder what kind of music that they were listening to at that time. So, but like I think like looking back at it now, looking back at like that album, I can kind of like tell like they were just like listening to like what Ripping Corpse, Human Remains, that kind of stuff. And I think what's great about the album is that it's the first album to really do like bass drops, and it's like well to me at least it's the first album to do it, and some people will say it like dripping or whatever, and I'll probably like call bullshit, but it's like it's whatever. Uh, with that, I just was like looking at live footage from like all these bands, and see if they like call out any like names that I like haven't heard of. I think I remember heard I heard Cephalic Carnage call out Nunslaughter in like a video once or a live performance once, and I didn't exactly like go into that yet because it's like they were like that blasphemous, and I didn't grow up in exactly a religious household, but it's like my mom was religious, and I was just like very scared to like get into them, which is like crazy because like I listen to Deicide. They have a song called "Kill the Christian," and fucking confessional rape. So it's like if you can listen to that, you can listen to Nunslaughter. So and I again I was just like I think the last turning point in my like life, or like the last couple turning points in my life was in 2000 like 18, not 2018. I think it was like 2022, not 2022 either. 2020. It was like that was my last year of high school, and it was just like it was basically when the time like COVID came around. Like I didn't technically even finish high school, so that's like really weird. And so I rediscovered the band Deceased, and I owe a lot to that band because it's like I now respect the origins of metal more than like the typical kid around my age, but it's like uh it's like I first I would like listen to like interviews of like King Fowley and all that, and he would like talk about like all these old metal bands like Fate's Warning and Fate's Warning and I think I didn't get to him in them, but he would mention them a lot. Jag Panzer, Queensryche, fucking Armored Saint, Wasp, and I was like, I want to get into this as well because I just wanted to like know the roots of metal because it's like I was willing to learn like how this music was created through that this kind of stuff, and I listened to all of that, and I was just like this is actually really fucking amazing, and so I like that and thrash a lot. I think the first like time I ever like got into thrash outside the big four was I think the first time that was like I think I was trying to get into like Dark Angel back then because Pig Destroyer covered them, but it's like I didn't like take the risk. So, but I I listened to I listened to a lot of German stuff. Like Crater, Sodom, you know Destruction, all those bands. Like after like I heard like Exhum's cover of Sodom and Lust, I was just like I need to hear more thrash. But it's like the moment I like listened to Deceased or like got back into Deceased, I was like I want to hear more thrash. Like there was like a lot of thrash to like get into, and there's just like thrash to me is what made death metal so great. Not only that, but you could also like trace it back to like trad metal if you want to, even classic rock, because it's like Trey Ozigoff, probably the greatest guitar player in death metal of all time. His main inspiration, or like rather, whenever someone brings up his soloing, he just calls it like Eddie Van Halen worship. And I'm just like that. That's kind of cool. Like I thought he was just kind of like doing like Slayerisms, but it's like you can kind of hear like the Eddie Van Halenisms in there. So it's not like oh I like fucking Eric Clapton or some shit. It's just like he actually like takes influence from fucking Eddie Van Halen. So and with that, I just feel like I kind of came to like a closure with metal, like within the past like few years, and it's not like I'm giving up on metal or whatever. Because of course I have my fucking posters in the background like talking about this, but it's like I just kind of like got bored with it like within like the past 2 years, and what I mean like bored with it, I just mean like I'm disappointed with it. So it's like if there is a new band that comes up that like someone recommends me, I'm just like it depends, but like you gotta really know me to like sell me on a band. It's like get me to listen to it. Like it's like oh hey, here's this band. They're called fucking I don't know, digested fecal matter or whatever. And it's like I'm not checking that out. I'm sorry, but it's like I've heard gore grind already, and it's just like I've heard everything by fucking basically like every artist I need to know. I already heard within gore grind, and with that there's like fucking covers of like just like fucking a fetus run over, or just like a fucking woman's head smashed in, and I'm just like this again. Like it was the final time was like shocking to me. Was like the Scourge's Forensic, which is that's a fucking hardcover to like digest. I own it, and it's just like whenever I pull it out, I just like I feel like I'm opening the coven or like whatever it's called, like in Indiana Jones. I feel like I'm opening that whenever I pull that out, and I love that record. It's a very intense, very brutal piece of grinding, metal. It's just that I just the cover just kind of puts me off of it, and it's just like whenever like just someone just like shows me like some cover like that, or like just like a piss grave ripoff or whatever, I'm just like I really don't need this. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. But with that, I was just like kind of like just getting into like fucking I've been getting into like a lot of different shit recently. Like I've recently like got into like funk and like jazz and all that. But the main reason I'm here today is because of metal. I feel like I would never have gotten this far within like my musical range if it wasn't for Metallica or even like the masters of like alternative rock, Nirvana. So that is what it is. So I hope you enjoyed that. You can probably like tell your story in the comments or whatever. Sorry if this video was a bit long, but it was like I just wanted to like discuss it. Do whatever I want with it. All that kind of stuff. But it's like this is Andrew Gabriel signing out, and this one thing I'll just say is stay middle.